And sorry about that. Got a little distracted there. In the Doylestown, PA, at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group meeting at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Maryrose, and she's going to be sharing her experience on Step 11. So let's welcome her.
Hey everyone, my name is Maryrose. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. Maryrose, you have a share? You were going to raise your hand.
I have 6 months in 2 days.
In 2 days.
Oh,
all right.
All right.
You didn't think I was going to let that slide.
Couldn't let that slip by, right?
No.
Good job.
All right. So my name is Maryrose again, alcoholic. So I never pay attention to what I'm supposed to do. I know I'm supposed to qualify on step 11. I didn't know I was supposed to qualify my sobriety. I'm like, oops. So I've been coming around these rooms since July 4th, 1998. And there's that's a lot of years. This sounds like I know, but it's not. All I have is today. Life throws you some curveballs, and sometimes you just have to go back to step 1. You just can't rely on time as being your savior. You got to kind of work it, and you got to stick with the winners. It's one thing. I have 2 sponsees, and I'm like, make sure you stick with the winners. The people who have time, the people who are working the program, who are honest, who are there for you. You know what I mean? That's where you need to be. Because right now, in my home group, I witnessed a couple of these people. It's just a revolving door, and it just breaks my heart, because it's like they may go out again and may never come back. It's possible, and that's the part that's terrifying. And that can happen, if you have a couple days, a couple months. You can have it after 20 years. I've seen it, I've seen the suicides and stuff like that. So as far as I'm concerned, as this sober alcoholic, all I have is today. And I try to stick with the winners. I do service. If someone asks me to speak, I have to say yes. Next time I'll make sure it's not dark out. So it's quite a distance from Quakertown. And I've gone through all these steps, several times. And then the best part about having sponsees is you get to do them again and again and again and again. And I was sober in the old timer days where you would walk in a room and, the first thing they'd ask you is who's your sponsor? What step are you on? When was your last meeting? And it's right in your face, but that's what it was. That's how they were. Nowadays it's a little softer, if you will. I don't want to critique how it's done, but when a couple of the ladies asked me to sponsor them, I said, "Are you ready?" Because that's just who I am. That's how I was taught. I went through this book, and we sat down once a week and we did a step, and we talked, periodically throughout the week, but every week you had to work on a step. And sometimes it took a couple of weeks to work on a particular step. It did for me when I first got sober. So step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. To me that's a big deal, because it's just hard to actually pray and meditate, for a lot of people, because their minds are going like this. I don't know about any other alcoholic, but I don't sit still, my mouth doesn't sit still, and my mind is on overload constantly. So for me to settle down, I really have to settle down and take that time. But in order to get to step 11, you really have to start with step 3. And that was pointed out to me at another meeting. It's made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Now, how do you do that? You do it daily. Well, that was the answer I got. I didn't know, that doesn't answer my question. How do I do that? And I wasn't sure how to do that. And it's whenever you're troubled, whenever you're thinking, whenever there's an anxiety, I had to learn to turn it over to God. And I learned more about step 3 with all the little tidbits in between step 3 and step 11. That was the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, steps. That's the meat and potatoes of AA. That is where we're going to grow, mature, and get sober. And, to do those steps over and over again and read them, you just keep getting more out of it. Like, I can't explain that until you do it. The first time is great, but it just, every time you go to a meeting, it's like, oh my God, we're reading step 5 again. Yeah. And you'll get something out of it each time. When I was about 5 years in sobriety, I had, really started thinking about my sobriety and, my spirituality and my religion, and I couldn't differentiate between the two. It was kind of confusing for me. And when I had, so at that time I was teaching religious education for the Catholic Church. I'm Catholic, born and raised Catholic. I will always be. Whether if I wanted to or not, that's just ingrained in my head. If anybody's raised Catholic, you'll know what I mean. And so that's what I was doing, and I kind of felt almost like a hypocrite because I was like, all right, I'm doing this, but I'm not feeling it, So I asked the priest, I'm like really confused between this religion that we see every week and then the spirituality part, I hear about it until I was in the rooms. And he explained to me that the religion is part of a conscious thing that we do. We worship, we give thanks, we it's sometimes a physical, but it's a conscious thing that we do. We say prayers and whatever. Spiritual comes from the heart. It comes from inside us. It's a feeling. It's the feeling that which we act upon, whether and spirituality is like, through prayer and meditation, seeking my conscious contact with God. But he explained it that way. And that was the first time in my life, I was close to 40 years old, that I understood what spirituality meant and what my next step was in my recovery. And so, I had to practice that. I had to talk to my sponsor about that, and other people in the rooms who had more time than me, obviously, how to take this road and stuff like that. Again, I am not a person that you're ever going to see on the beach meditating. Can't do it. Tried it. It's not going to work. I'm just too hyper. But I do take moments, and I'm able to do that. I do take time to breathe and just say a prayer. I pray a lot for people. It's just things going on in my life, and I'm to the point in my life where I just want serenity, and I pray for others, and I just say God's will, and I just focus on that, and that's my thing, but it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. And I always felt since the day I walked into the rooms, the one thing I always felt, and it was just such a sigh of relief, was hope. Never in my life did I ever feel, I felt so welcomed and so loved, but I felt hope. And I kept coming back because this is where it's at. You have this desire to live again, a desire to just be part of something bigger than yourself, and you don't know what it is because we're, when we first come in, we're so green and confused, and it took me a while to get the cobwebs out of my head, and and I was like an adult, and I was like a real world adult with children and a job and stuff like that. I was just the most effed up person you ever want to meet. I mean, it was just up here was like, but AA took that person and kind of made her whole. And then I became a better worker. I became a better mother. I became a better daughter, just by working through these steps. But most importantly was, finding that contact with God in the spiritual sense and understanding it's from here for spirituality and here for religion. And as long as I could, it works for me. So whatever I say here, this is what Maryrose does. I'm not expecting anybody else to do it, but this is what works for me, and that's how I was able to survive. So going through the years, I've met a lot of people in the rooms. Like I said, we were, people come and go, and it's a very scary thought, especially around the holidays. And we were rallying around this one particular person over in Quaketown where, every time they come in, it's like, this is the only place I feel loved, and it's true. We love this person until they love themselves, and it's going to be that way. And I hope then it comes soon because, in my time, this disease will take you out. And if it takes you out and one time wrong, we may never see you again. And that's sad on us, that's sad on you, that's sad on your family, it's whoever you're attached to. I often describe alcoholism, and what it does to us is like throwing a pebble in a pond. It's like, well, my disease only affected me. It's like, no, it didn't. It affected everyone. You throw that pebble in the pond, you watch it ripple. That's you. And you're spreading this out to the stranger on the road that you're driving drunk. Like these are things that we don't resonate in our head what our disease does when we drink. Now, I'm an alcoholic. I always will be an alcoholic, and I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm kind of glad because it gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams. But to say I'm glad is because as long I'll maintain this type of life as long as I don't drink. Like I'm okay with being an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever, as long as I don't pick up and use. It's okay. It's not a stigma unless you let it be. I consider myself blessed being here. I consider myself, fortunate, meeting a lot of people. My social life is active. So like these are things that come by being part of this program. And circling back through step 11. It took time, and as I went through the steps, how I got closer to God, especially like 6 and 7, going through my character defects. I had to, go through them again this past year. I owe an amends to an old boss of mine because of my character defects, and you just have to constantly be on top of yourself. You just don't get sober and get better. You are a constant work in progress. And so going through all these steps and acknowledging my wrongs and trying to make it right and, trying to be serene and serenity is my step 11, being outside and being in nature, watching the sunrise and being grateful that I get to see it, and just like, being with friends, talking on the phones in the morning to people. I used to do that on my way to work, talk to women who were going to work and, get that touch in with AA. And I still do it. And I'm retired. But I'm up and I'm there for them, because that's part of my service, I'm still there, still talking, it's what I do. And I probably will continue to do it because even though they think they're calling me and they need to talk to me, I need them. I need them too, It just keeps connected. So, but I will still constantly try to improve my prayer and meditation. I kind of just told on myself I can't sit still long enough to do it, but I'm a work in progress. I've been a work in progress since July 4th, 1998, and I will continue because I only have today. Thanks for letting me share.
I appreciate it. We've come to a part of the meeting where we're going to open up the floor for shares, discussions, or questions. Try to limit your time to 3 minutes. We've got quite a few people here. Leave your conversation or to either the literature, the step that Maryrose spoke tonight. If you feel like drinking or if you've had a drink today, please see me or someone after the meeting. So the floor is yours.